Records Administration Committee to order. 6:32 p.m. on July 9th. We have present Alderman Gorman, Alderman Carncross, and myself, Alderman Haderlein, and any public
I checked the sheet when I came in, there was nobody signed.
too. Well, just a quick comment. I think that's great, actually, having the podium and the sheet there and the door closed. You know, just because you're gonna see it when you open the door. And so it makes it very obvious. Okay. Item number 3 on the agenda, Fraternal Order Police Equipment Request. We had some information in the packet about some body armor that they'd like to acquire.
Yes, they're still pricing it out. What it is an active shooter kit. It is a ceramic plate armor that they would like to, and what they would like to do is purchase up to 4 of them. The FOP, through their fundraising, has about $20,000. They can spend about 10 or 15,000 and kind of get them back to where they're. They don't want to hold on to too much cash, and doing so, we'll kind of get a couple of birds in at one sweep there. So they'll be able to upgrade their armor. These to-go kits are pretty simple. They'll be in the vehicles, so if they need them, they're right there.
So they'll actually just be in the vehicle rather than stored. Because this says the vessel will be stored in the equipment room and will be available for officers to check out.
Yeah, they'll be able, like on duty, check them out and keep them in their vehicle while they're, those who want to carry it around.
Okay.
This is a full donation of the equipment.
It is a full donation.
Okay.
They understand that once it comes to under their city authority, it is city property.
So like the drone.
Like similar
Type
to the
deal.
drone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Any comments or questions?
I have no problem. I mean,
I have a motion.
So the motion would be to recommend to the city council to approve this transaction of, what are they again?
For active shooter.
Active
kits.
shooter,
Because the memo said 2.
Oh, 2.
so-
I'm sorry. They had
It is
mentioned
2?
4 when we had
Okay.
talked. I apologize.
Okay.
It is 2.
Okay. So motion.
motion. Okay, I'll second Charlie's motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion passes. Item number 4. Back truck repair costs.
So we've had issues with the vac truck since it was purchased. This is another round of issues that we're having. The equipment cost, or the replacement, the repair cost comes out to $23,000. Yeah. We've gone round for round with EJ Equipment to get the price down, considering the conditions that we originally picked up the vehicle and other issues that we've had with this vehicle since we've purchased it. Unfortunately, they feel that the $22,000 and change is appropriate.
So did we acquire it from EJ?
Yes.
Okay.
We purchased it used about 2.5 years ago. And it wasn't until earlier this year that we finally got the title, because it was, it's been a crazy transaction.
Yeah, this is the first I've heard of any problems with this.
Well, that's a warning saying that's not the first time. So. But yes, it is probably the first time it's been brought to the council's the committee's attention, because we've had warranty coverages, we've had enough or below the
You
threshold
didn't.
to be able? No?
Well, it says here that you bought it as is. It says with no warranty.
Oh, I apologize. Well, no, when he came in, right, thank you. So not necessarily warranty, but good faith. It came in, there were some screws that were missing out of it. There were bolts that were on the floor. It was a little bit of a mess when we first picked it up.
When we purchased it, we were aware that it was going to have a few problems, being that it's used, and I believe there was funds budgeted for in vehicle maintenance to account for some of those as well, which is probably why you didn't hear about it. It was already budgeted for some of those costs.
So the 13,000 that is referenced in here.
The 13,000 was
For the blower unit.
they covered that.
Well, it says EJ covered some of the parts.
Yes.
That he pitched in approximately.
That's above and beyond that. There's other things. There were some smaller things at the beginning, I believe, that we knew would have to be done to it, just based on the fact that it was used. I know that there's at least 4 invoices, I think.
There's some invoices for what I would consider maintenance parts, filters, things like that, but the big ticket items are, we've previously rebuilt this blower where they've taken on some of the costs. We spent $13,000 to rebuild the blower in January of '23, and now they got it, I think, in March or April of '24, and the blower needs to be repaired again. And while they good faithed us some of the stuff in the first go round, this time they're saying it's all on us. They did, Lou, John Bartel and I sat down with them and explained some of the situation, because we didn't receive the title until this year. This is an email correspondence that I sent to the president. Everything in yellow is an email where I had to reach out to them to ask them about the title. And this went on for months, years.
Is the title clean, or was this just?
So the title
Title's
is clean. What had happened was, this was a demo unit for them that got used and abused. Because it was a demo unit, it never got issued a title. It had a manufacturer's certificate of origin. When it was some point in that lifetime, they issued a duplicate manufacturer's certificate of origin because they lost the first one. Then when they sold it to us, they provided the original because they lost track of the second. So the state of Illinois was in receipt of the original, but the state of Illinois saw that there was a duplicate on file, so they kept reaching out to EJ without response, just like we had. And it finally got to the point where Lou and I sat down one day, and I hit VACCON corporate. The president of the company started just ringing all sorts of bells, and they came. They came and they helped, but it took effort to get them to show up for it. And I think part of this is just because it just seemed like we were kind of left with the bag.
So there's no warranty on the first job they did?
On the
Rebuilding the blower. See, first of all, let's keep this separate, I think. There's 2 separate issues here. One is the title, which,
That's taken care of.
the title's thing, we've got that.
yeah, and the second issue are these repairs and the costs. And, if a repair only lasts a year, are you predicting that when 1 year from after this repair, we spend $22,000, we're gonna do it again?
I can't predict that. So in their initial inspection, they're blaming the Public Works Department for misusing the truck. They were pointing fingers. They had all this stuff where they said, well, these things weren't cleaned. And I sat down there with John, and John, he said, we train these guys how to do this. And John's like, you never once said anything about these items. And we did a poll of the shop, and nobody remembered it except for one guy who said, I remember they mentioned something about it. And in the discussion, it was, if these are that important, are you trying to not mention this? Because this is a hefty repair.
So they rebuilt the blower once, and now they have to rebuild it again?
Do we know what the failure on the blower?
So
was
what
the last time
they
it
what they said was that the blower was being overworked, causing it to overheat, which the coupler was running into itself. It wore through rubber, which wore through the cam lobes on that, And because of all that heat and the pressure on the head plate, because they said it was being overworked, it stressed the bearings and ended up scorching the side of the case. So it needs a new head plate bearing assembly.
And their claim is that we didn't operate it right, is that correct?
Correct.
And that's what caused it to fail the second time?
Correct.
And we have since been taught how to operate it correctly?
Yeah, the minute they left, I made sure, because we have the exact same unit, except it's a brand new demo. And, we went back there and I said, like these things up here, we have to clean these and take care of them. And they're like, we sprayed them down every time. So, and I just told them, I said, this is, that much more important to take care of these things, because we need to be held blameless if this happens again.
So we are confident that we have the knowledge to, yeah, so we are confident that we now have the knowledge, the skills to be able to maintain it in a way that this doesn't happen.
We aren't 100% sure
Okay.
that this was the reason that it
Okay.
happened, being that this is such a
Right.
repeat issue. Talked to a couple people and they said, even if you were beating the crap out of that thing,
Yeah,
you shouldn't be doing a blower a year, because these, a replacement blower is $52,000.
right.
So rebuilding it is pricey.
This,
But, when we bought this machine, the first repair order that we have from EJ, this is the one that has 13,000, that we paid 13,000 to get done. On here it talks about how, the belts, there's a loud clunking noise, the housing and guard for the belt was cracked, the flex plates were damaged, It just seems like this was a contractor unit. It was used and abused. Bartel said that the first day we had it, he doesn't think it made it 4 hours before it lost 60 gallons of hydraulic fluid because one of the hoses was loose. He said it looked like there were boxes of hardware just scattered among the inside of it, because it was just, he's like, there was missing bolts, there was loose hoses, there was hardware just scattered. He's like, it looks like somebody just took a box from the hardware store and slammed it down in the catwalk up top.
What does a new one of these cost?
$650,000.
so for this blower drive, this is a hydraulic drive.
It's a hydraulic driven with a shaft between, and it goes to like a big root style blower on the
Okay.
side.
Because it sounds to me, how they're saying this happened makes no logical sense to me.
There-
With a hydraulic system like that, it basically blew itself up. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
I agree with you in that, and that's one of the reason why we had discussions. We actually had several discussions with, all the way up to Ed, the owner.
Yeah, Ed is the president
Thank
of
you.
EJ Equipment.
Have we had anybody independent look at this outside of
We-
EJ just to get an idea of what they think?
Right now, it's disassembled at EJ. They included removing the blower and sending it out as part of their good faith effort, along with the wastegate turbo repair and some other miscellaneous repairs while it was down there. So right now, the efforts to, talk to other people, I've talked to one company that also they sell a competitor's brand. They said we could try, but a lot of these parts are proprietary to Vacon. So I gave them the tag on the roots blower, and they're like, we can get you a new blower for $52,000. The other Vacon dealer I called in Wisconsin said, without seeing it, I can give you a parts quote. And they, parts alone were $16,000, and they said, we wouldn't even know what to charge you for labor because we haven't done this type of work before.
So in our discussions, I've expressed to EJ my severe disappointment, because I've worked with them in the past in a previous community and have not been treated at all like this. The fact that the title, it is a separate unit, but it kind of goes to the quality of customer service, that it took over 2 years to get it here. The fact that the blower, we've had it for a little over a year, it's already failed. How many more times, we're hoping to get, another 3 to 5 years out of this thing. Does it mean that we have to budget, 23,000 plus every year just to replace the blower?
What is it costing to rent?
Nothing, they'll give it to us for free.
Right now, their rental, because of,
Oh, okay.
so their rental is, according to them, it would have a cost to us right now of $15,000 a month
To rent.
to
If we
rent.
were renting.
If we were renting it, yes.
So the total cost of the repair is 22,652, and they've already knocked 13,350 off of that?
Yes, that was for the other stuff that they.
Plus,
talked
they've
about.
given us 15,000 a month for the last 3 months in rental?
Correct.
I personally wouldn't even consider the 15,000.
No, I
I
understand.
know we have to consider that, but I would, that,
My issue with
yeah,
this
if
is we
they
have a
wanted to
quarter of
be
$1 million
jerks, they
into
could-
this. We purchased
Yeah,
it for 250 grand.
Exactly.
yeah.
I mean, we can't just shit can it and get, sorry,
No, no,
we
no.
can't just can it and get another,
No,
get
no,
another
no,
truck. That's not practical.
No, I mean, I'm not saying that. I have professional experience, not in these machines, not in these vehicles, but quite a bit in the vehicle repair and maintenance industry throughout. And it's absurd. I mean, I understand buying something as is, but this sounds an awful lot like some very shady, these events mirror really shady auto mechanics that buy junk cars, get them just barely running, and then sell them to a customer, or buy them off one customer and sell them to another customer. I'm not accusing them of that. I'm not saying that that's the situation, but it stinks.
But it sounds like
It smells. It
How long
smells-
have these
it
guys
smells
been in
like dirty
business?
feet, okay? But
Time.
Yeah,
So ultimately what it is the last conversation, and I told them that anything over my threshold would have to come to this committee. I said that although I can see a little bit of a lack of training on our part, or through the system, us being not trained as much to maintain it, at the same time, I felt that they should have made sure that the most critical part was trained.
Yeah.
And at least documented that we were trained, and neither side can document whether or not we were trained. So I laid out a number that I'm willing to do. Anything above that, I had warned them, we're gonna be going back to the committee to get approval. Now, that being said, what we're asking today is essentially a recommendation not to exceed the 22,000.
652.
652.
I'm gonna double check all the numbers right now.
now this,
To continue to get bids between now and council meeting, but not to exceed the 22,652 as a recommendation to go back to
To
council.
rebuild the blower.
Well, this vehicle is become a very important part of the fleet, and
they use
when
it
it's
a lot.
working, it's very important. It's what's going to prevent my basement from filling up with water again, I think, for one thing, and which is worth at least 15,000.
So you're saying you'll contribute 50?
Well, no, what I'm saying is that,
That's what I heard,
there's
too.
two concerns I have. One is that, is all of this worth it? In other words, are we gonna end up with something that we can continue to use for our normal life, once these repairs are concerned? And secondly, if this thing is such a sensitive piece of equipment and so on, where's the original manufacturing this? Are they willing to send somebody out and do, a thorough training job and look at all the weaknesses and
So-
things?
EJ Equipment is owned by the same family that owns Vacon, that makes the machine. We sent John Bartel and Adam Caston down to their Mantino location for a day's worth of training. Certainly we can have another, the crews that operate that, the staff of Public Works, all have an awareness of how to operate it and what to do with it. Which is why I have difficulty believing that, what they did was the deciding factor in this, but certainly some retraining, some more like, what I told the guy and in discussions with Lou and John was like, things are important, are red. Stoplights are red, stop signs are red, you didn't have that red moment with these devices, is what it's sounding like.
Yeah.
You should have said, hey, stop everything, everybody focus your attention here, this is important. So,
Oh, yeah.
because
yeah.
only one person even remembered them mentioning it.
Yeah.
What's the warranty period for this service?
I was just gonna ask that.
I don't think there is one I can ask. Let me see.
Can we get some kind of agreement,
Yeah.
Lou, where, if they truly rebuilt the entire thing twice now, that if we drop this 23 grand, do we get a warranty on it, and can we get it in writing?
We can check.
I would assume that, this is obviously a dealer for the manufacturer or
Yeah.
distribution center, however you want, however their sales structure is. I would presume that there would have to be some kind of parts and labor warranty on a repair that we're paying for. Or at least if they don't offer one, I would demand one, because even if they're negotiating on the costs and stuff, if we're actually paying for repairs, there should be some kind of period of time that they would cover. Parts alone should have a warranty from the manufacturer when they've
Yeah.
been used.
To not just fail.
Labor is
Yeah.
typically a separate piece, but I don't have a problem with the dollar amount. The title's handled, et cetera. I'm familiar with this type of situation in other experiences, and they need to do right by us on this and make sure. They don't want to get stuck with the bag. We don't want to get stuck with the bag. But they need to
So-
stand behind their work.
So what we can do is we can go back and talk to them, make sure that we've got some sort of warranty, continue to try to negotiate on the price of that, not to, again, to exceed the 22,652.
So yeah, that's the last total was the, parts was 18,099.62, labor was 16,430.50. They had a sublet for 1477.46, and their miscellaneous redaction was 13,355.33, which is what their good faith was.
And most of that, by the way, is because of the title issue.
Yeah,
Is why they
that
gave
was
us
a
the
good
faith.
leverage.
What's their hourly rate that they're charging for labor? I'm just curious.
Let me see here. I don't know if they have that.
They probably did not have that
Wrote out-
itemized.
When they priced it out, did they have how many hours that
No,
total
because it's just
labor?
parts and then
Yeah,
labor.
I don't think
Labor's a lump sum for
I
this
don't
one.
think there's a flat rate for that.
No, not for this type of stuff.
No, they have to have a calculation for how they're coming up with the labor. It's an hourly rate. They're just multiplying it by a certain amount to come up with the labor.
Mhm.
I'd just be curious to know. It would be it would be fair for, as a customer, being a municipal customer or not, to know what their labor rate is. So I think it's a fair question just to know, not because I think that they're ripping us off or anything, but I would like to know that information.
Well, we want more of an expectation or we should be going through this with an expectation that it'll last more than a year.
Right.
So again, I'll just reiterate that we're asking this committee to approve a recommendation to council for us to continue to negotiate and/or find someone else to fix it at a price not to exceed 22,652.
I have one more question. Deb, where's this money coming from?
Right.
This money would have to come from a vehicle maintenance line item, which may go over budget at the end of the fiscal year because it's a significant amount.
Right.
We would have the option of splitting it between the two funds or taking it off from the sewer water fund. We would also have the option of paying for it out of the sewer water tap-on fund. We've gotten a significant amount of building permits since January 1st, around $60,000 in new construction permits has gone into the tap-on fund, so there is some money there. However, that's also been earmarked for lead line replacement and possibly a new generator if a grant doesn't come through, or possibly a grant application for a new generator if the grant that Lou has applied for doesn't come through. So there's still some different decisions we can make on that. But as of right now, being this close to the start of the fiscal year, I would suggest we just do it out of the line item for vehicle maintenance and see where we end up. I mean, if we're over, we're over. That's one of those things that's unforeseen, right?
Right.
It's explainable, it's justifiable,
Yeah.
that if those types of things do go over budget, we can certainly justify and explain why.
I don't think we have a choice. This is something we've got to do. And And now we know where the money's gonna come from. It's gonna come out of maintenance, and hopefully the rest of the maintenance doesn't
Right. Right.
overrun. And then, you know, try to get the best deal you can and get a warranty out of it. So, yeah, I think we should approve it.
Is there
That
a, is there a term for the warranty that would be acceptable?
Lifetime.
I mean, I
Could
think,
start there.
I
and
think
work
2 years would
backwards.
be reasonable to start, to ask.
3.
Yeah, I mean, only because, I mean, one, it's made it a year. And we also have to, I mean, in reality, we do have to realize that, you know, this is a hard-working machine. This is a machine that we're gonna use to extreme, and obviously, it's an intermittent use. We're not gonna, I mean, we're gonna be using it in the worst weather. So, I think 2 years minimum would be a fair ask.
Rob and I can certainly look at the budget and discuss it too. As of June, there's about 37,000 left in both 0102, which is Public Works Fund, and Utilities Vehicle Maintenance Fund, and we can, you know, talk about what was planned, what wasn't planned, and see how we can make that work as well.
Is there an hour meter on the truck?
Yes.
How many hours run this?
On our unit, I don't have that record. I know that it's seen significant use since we purchased the cameras. You know, the guys have been out, and one of this stack here is every storm sewer that we've cataloged, cleaned, gotten rim elevations, invert elevations, and we're figuring out, you know, this is all going into the GIS, so we have all this stuff. But without the VACON or a similar piece of equipment, you know, that would be impossible.
No, I was just trying to understand, you know, we got it at, you know, 250K, but how many hours were on the truck when we bought it? Not mileage, because mileage doesn't mean anything for this. We don't, how many
Right.
hours?
Generally speaking, the contractor equipment is hard, because that was earning its wage for
Sure.
16 hours a day probably, especially with this type of equipment. You know, for what we have, it works great when it works. You know.
Their next demo is in Harvard right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
I mean,
use it well.
do we currently track the hours use on the machine?
So
As we
we
go.
don't,
Okay.
but one of the things that I've been wanting to implement, and I've talked to Debi about this, is in a previous community, I used to have a monthly report that all department heads had to do, and it wasn't just the hours, but it was also mileage, so that we can better track our vehicles, and vehicles, the mileage on the vehicles should also track with all the other maintenance, so that we got more than one way of tracking things.
That makes total sense. I was just thinking
This
that,
emphasizes again why I should implement that here.
So starting last year, and this will come into play as time goes on to show trends. Starting last year, I set John up with a Microsoft Forms for work order submittals. So John, there's a Microsoft form that he goes through for every vehicle. He inputs, you know, the service needed, hours, miles, you know, the cost, the parts. And it's been invaluable, because before it was all paper files. Some were on the computer, some weren't. So now, you know, if John needs something, if I need something, I can pull it up and go, you know, import it into Excel and go, all right, you know, vehicle number 22, when's the last time we saw that? What did we do to it last? Get miles and stuff off of it. So as time goes on, we will have more of that data built out. Right now, it's limited because there's only about a year's worth of data in there.
no, it's fine. I was more thinking if it was something we weren't tracking on this vehicle now, after this repair, we should, more for our own records, just monthly, we know how many hours it's seeing.
Yeah.
That's good information, because we can actually compare that to what averages are on these vehicles. Maybe we are using it a lot less than an average community is gonna use it for. Sometime we may be using it more. If we go to ask for a warranty, odds are they're probably gonna wanna put an hours use on it as well, because they're gonna say, you know, if they say 2 years, it's gonna be okay, and 50,000 hours or whatever, because obviously, you know, that would be fair on their side, just so that way we know.
Right.
And more to protect ourselves.
And
Yeah.
I'm just curious, do we know that whether or not this particular problem is common or not with these vac?
So with these, so what we have is we have a positive displacement unit, which is a root style blower that has very tight tolerances. And, we use it for hydro excavating. We use it for all sorts of stuff. There's cyclones and things that are supposed to remove dirt and debris. The positive displacement machines can pull a vacuum hundreds of feet, but they're also more finicky. They're more costly. In talking to some of the vendors about some of the stuff, that one of the vendors said, like, if you would have had a fan machine, we'd have sold you a whole new fan and components for $7,000. Like, blowers are just inherently more expensive.
Okay. Thanks.
I mean, I'll motion to approve the do not exceed amount for 22,652, with the direction to continue negotiating and hopefully achieve some kind of warranty on the parts and or labor for the repairs.
I should make mention for the committee that it was 22,652 and 25 cents. I didn't get the quarter in there.
I'll amend my motion to include the 25 cents. Yeah.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. We have a motion approved.
I'm sure I know what you're going to say.
What? Okay, item number 5, surplus property declaration.
Use the funds from this to pay for the blower repair. I don't
Yes.
think our copier is going to cover it, but
Samsung copier, freezer.
Is
So
the
this,
freezer pool? Is that the pool?
Yeah, so this goes back to our rather than waiting, twice a year, as we find things, just get rid of it while it still has value before it gets beat up in storage.
Yeah.
We were told the StarTech.com router actually has quite a bit of value in it. That's why if we put up in auction, we try to get some good money back for the taxpayer. The freezer, in streamlining the pool house, we had way more freezers than we ever needed. So this is, we're cycling this one out along with some other stuff that we were able to disperse to some of the other departments, just to make it easier.
what kind of freezer is it?
It's one of those good humor freezers, so it's got the individual bays for ice cream.
It's a chest freezer.
Yeah, chest
Oh,
freezer, thank you.
Okay.
How many square footage is that?
Somebody needs a freezer.
I got one. I just maybe want to go.
It's not
over.
real big,
No, it's only about,
It's what you see like in a grocery store, holds good humor.
like at Casey's or something by the
Oh,
door.
okay.
Yeah.
but we don't need it because we've cycled down to just like 3 options for ice cream. We don't need the 24 different bays for it.
We should see if we could lease out the space to Baskin Robbins or something like that. Yeah.
But we believe there's still value in it.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean,
For someone else.
there's a lot of newer restaurants buy used equipment and stuff like that all the time, so I can see that actually being a very popular item.
And then the Samsung copier obviously is just, it's too old.
Yeah.
It's actually really hard to get anything for it, and so we just want to e-cycle it.
Okay.
We need a motion to,
Motion.
To declare.
okay, a motion to approve the selling of surplus property from July.
Okay, second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. We're selling surplus property. That brings us to item number 6, which is discussion of strategic vision items and our priorities.
It's not on the packet.
Looking to focus on all priorities or just kind of more?
For the
ones that are
committee,
more immediate?
yeah, I think setting some, what's where do we want to, what do we think is the most important? Where do we want to start?
Yeah, set some priorities.
Yeah.
Isn't the third bullet point pretty much already done?
No, that we still have quite a bit as far as forms and that
Okay.
it would be helpful to have it translated. As far as number one, the website to improve data and access, that would be a budgetary item for next year. I would like this committee to consider focusing on that for the 24 or 25, 26 budget year.
Okay.
And part of that, making it ADA compliant.
Resident survey. That seems like a big, I mean, there's a lot that goes into doing that.
Surveys sound like they're easy to take, but they're hard to make,
They are.
especially to make them where you're getting actual data that makes sense,
Right.
right?
Are we looking to do like one large survey or survey? Because
I think it's at your discretion.
we do a lot of surveys through with the company that I work for. So the management likes to get a lot of input from the employees. So it's a very forward-thinking company. And we do a lot of surveys, but they try to keep, like, some things they always have on the survey for just general, like, kind of like, how do you feel? Do you enjoy what you do? Do you have the materials and things like that? But they try to do surveys that focus more on a specific area. And then they will do surveys periodically, but they try to have some focus area. I think one of the main challenges that we'll have is since it's a new direction we're looking to go and a new project we're taking on. I think it would be prudent for us to figure out, okay, what areas do we want to survey, break those out into different surveys, and then maybe do them over a spread out period of time. So that way we can get more accurate information and also be strategic on which surveys we do at what part of the year. Because obviously if we're going to have a survey, let's say for summer programming or something like that, we maybe want to do that in the fall, coming to the end of the year so people can give their feedback. We don't want to necessarily do it in the middle of January when everybody's not even thinking about, the swimming pool.
So let me ask something, because we just sent out recently a survey about trying to find out about cross connections. Went out with the water bills, the last water bills. Did we hear back from anybody?
We did get a substantial response back in the
About
900 range.
950 roughly,
Really?
as of now, as of the last couple of weeks. I don't know if she's gotten more.
Okay.
So,
That's really good.
yeah, a lot more than they thought they were going to get.
Because I know
Like
I
Jim
didn't,
Grant
I
was
didn't
going to
send
track
mine
them,
back.
and he ended up, Alderwoman Haderlein.
I know.
He was going to track him, and he ended up turning that over to Ruby because it got too
Big.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well, that's good.
she's in the process, I think, of cataloging everything.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
We're looking to do an
Something
electronic
similar.
survey, right?
Right. It would probably be something similar to like the Parks and Rec Department did the last couple of years, figure out like what services the committee would like to see, any critiques. I know that opens up the door to a lot of things, but
I mean,
it wouldn't hurt to hear
for every
what
10
they're seeing.
for every 10 absurd critiques and nitpicky things, you sometimes get one or two that are,
Right.
good valid points. And I mean, not to say that everybody deserves their opinion, but
Well, and we
But
want to improve.
the response wasn't nearly like that, though.
Oh, no, right.
I mean, it
That's
was-
the biggest response we've
yeah,
ever got out of
Yeah, I mean,
any
that's
kind of inquiry,
huge. Yeah, so,
well, I
at least
guess
during my tenure.
Be the gift card.
the start of it would be to figure out, okay, what areas do we want input on more urgently now?
Right.
And then let's focus on those areas to come up with some kind of and then figure out the questions, then figure out the best way to deliver for this information.
right, I mean, what are we trying to learn? I mean,
Because
yeah,
the key is to make the surveys short.
Right.
And easy to navigate, easy to read, and have the questions written in a way that we can get the information without anything being vague or misleading.
Yeah.
I mean, just even the vocabulary we use has to be careful. So I guess, do we want to discuss that in depth now, or do we want to make a plan for focusing on that?
So the easy to navigate part is the problem I have the most with, or where I have the most problem, because most surveys that I take, I'm forced to go in a certain direction. In other words, you already, you start out by saying, we're going to find out what you want, and then you list things that you want, maybe not what I want, and then make me make a choice.
So you're buying a Ford, what color do you want?
And I hardly ever make it through those things. I said, this isn't worth it. My brain's starting to hurt already, and because and I think the problem is that surveys aren't easy, not good ones. Surveys are hard, and I, when I was doing these things with a nonprofit, Lisa, you might be able to agree with this, is that we got professional help. It was worth the money to pay a survey company who is a professional to put these together. Now they come to you and you sit down and they make sure it's what you want, and then they tell you, well, you can't do this because this is, and so on. Plus they can put all those turns in it, decision trees, and take you in different directions depending on what kind of answer you made ahead of that.
Yep.
And you end up with something you can really use. Plus, they do the statistics for you,
Yeah.
which are meaningful statistics, based on mathematical approved methods. In other words, they can give you, this is 5%, within 5% accuracy of what your constituency believes. You can't do that by just how we've been doing it.
No.
Now, so I am 100% for surveys, but I am not too much for the way we've been doing it because it's not what we do. It's not our jobs to be able to be.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I majored in statistics in college. So you're absolutely right, Charlie. I think it'll start with, what do we want to get out of it?
Exactly.
And where do we want to start with what information we need?
Well, you have
Because
to have,
if we're gonna do surveys that are gonna involve complex answers or things that are very contentious that require a lot of thought. Like it's an election season, so I'll use the example of, you get political surveys from everybody and their brother, and if you start reading them carefully, the first few questions are kind of innocuous, and then quickly they're using terminology and vocabulary that steers you into one party or the other. I've done a few of those, and usually by question 4, I'm like, I can already tell you who's asking this survey, even though it's anonymous. So yes, I agree. We need to be careful, but I think it depends on how complex we really want to get to start. I think if we I don't want to run out and get a consulting firm right away if we don't know what we want out of it.
No, I think that's exactly. We need to actually identify what are the questions that we want answered or want help answering.
The key areas that we want to know information on.
Right, and why? Because just getting information, unless there's a purpose.
Yeah, what do we want to use it for?
Yeah, what is it? How are we wanting to use the information to help us make decisions? What are those decisions we need help making?
Has there been discussion in staff about like what areas we'd like to potentially
There
get information
hasn't, but what I was offering, or one thing I could offer to help on this, is that in the last week or so, I received an email from NIU their public administration department that is looking for projects for their students. This could be something that we could reach out to them to have them do it as a
Yep.
class project. It's independent. They can focus on it more so than we can. And typically these are done free because it's classwork.
I think that's an excellent way to start. I mean, it's something
If
that,
we know what we want them to,
Right, and that,
it's
that's
not just,
one thing.
have them
Oh,
come in and do a
absolutely.
survey.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
it could be something that we invite, reach out to them, see if their students are willing to do it, invite them here to discuss what is it this committee and eventually the council would actually like to see done. And then they would form based on that.
Yeah, I think a good example, of course we have to have a subject matter, otherwise where do you start, so. But I was just trying to think of an example recently, and the one that came to mind, Deb, was when you and I were talking about going through the data on water usage. And we were asking each other questions about, I wonder, the average size family, and I was wondering about, and then is there a way to compare that to the amount of water they use, and is Harvard typical to another town, and so on. But we came up with a lot of things that could have been, we could have used a survey to get our arms around when we were trying to determine whether we should go 6%, 5%, and that sort of thing. There was a lot of a survey would have been a good deal for that, a professional survey, and that would go along. There's your topic. Now we bring somebody in, and first of all, we decide if is this what we really want to do, and then if the answer is yes, we go out to RFP or whatever to see who we might want to pick to help us get there, or maybe use the college interns or something like that. But yeah, I just think doing it on our own though is what I'm kind of against, because I've seen those and they're difficult. I couldn't make it through the park one. I wanted to, but it just, because there's no way to answer some of those questions based on how I answered a question farther up the ladder.
and I would pose that that's a poorly constructed set of questions, because normally a good survey shouldn't be a tree of answers that lead you into other answers that prevent, it should be just a set of questions.
And actually, it's the opposite. It's the opposite of that. It should have trees based on your previous decision, so that you're answering future questions that pertain to how you answered questions ahead of that.
But then from a data standpoint, you're not going to get consistent data.
Yeah, of course you are.
Yeah.
But again, you need professionals to be able
To actually design it.
to
and
design it and
how things
capture
are
that,
nested,
and then
yeah.
apply statistics to it.
So one of the things that can happen is you can direct staff to pull together some ideas, be it professional or using students, and come back to the committee in August and propose it then. It also gives this committee time to think about what specifically you want or what areas you want to focus on as far as questions.
Well, it's not just this committee either, is it?
No, I think staff and as well as
Yeah.
Right.
the alderpersons also brainstorm.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and all of this could actually be quite effective in their future master plan, and where we head with that. And I think we have a little bit of time. I don't know that we'd have to bring it back in August,
Right.
because just based on this discussion, it sounds like we're leaning towards a professional service, which would require money, which would require us to budget for that in the next fiscal year. So we would have some time to get ideas together, go out for RFP and look for a company that could assist us, get a price so we know what to budget for.
Well, I think every committee could have,
Well,
could
maybe
be
what
thinking
this,
about what are the questions they want answered
maybe-
by the community.
Yeah.
maybe what this committee could do is put a structure together for that reporting. And in other words, say, and put some kind of, we're interested in, having, maybe we put a limit on it. We can afford to have 3 surveys a year. Whatever.
Yeah.
And because, you know, we can get a kind of a handle on how much those really do cost through these professional organizations.
Yeah.
And I'm not even going to venture a guess because it's been too long for me since I've done it, but,
Yeah, me too.
and I'm sure it's probably double what that was. But my point is that what we could do is we have those, and then we can get candidates for surveys from all corners of government, you know, from the committees, from staff, from public. And then this committee can determine which ones we can kind of go with or work with.
Right. Or how to, when.
Yeah, but I think you need to establish kind of a structure of, you know, where, because otherwise if you just say, hey, if you got any ideas for surveys, let me know. I think if there's a structure for that,
I like that.
and that's what we could work on.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that each committee is going to have, every committee is going to have information that they'd like to have that a survey could provide and give good insight. And the way I'm thinking about it is that it would make, obviously the committees are built to mirror our department heads and our department structure so that one feeds into the other. I think it would be good if the department heads, especially since some are new, you know, when Lou came on, Lou had a lot of questions. Lou observed, asked a lot of questions. That's a great way to start. We've got newer department heads. I mean, obviously, you know, some have been here for a little bit longer. I think it would be great to get a list of questions. They don't have to be survey questions, but a list of questions of information that the department heads would find extremely valuable that could come from the community. And then we can use that information to extrapolate out a way to ask those questions in a very simple way that the community could provide feedback voluntarily.
Yeah.
Because that's the other problem is we want to encourage real, thoughtful responses, but also encourage people to be voluntary to respond to it. And we can use that as a way to get some demographic information, but I think we want to be very cautious about what demographic information we ask for, so that we don't turn off people from wanting to answer.
Well, and I think, you know, what I've found at least with surveys is it can also be a really good opportunity to educate the people filling out the survey, because you can phrase the question in a way that you're giving them some information about something that they may not be aware of. And then they're responding to that. And so it can actually, you know, like the lead pipe issue, for instance. People may not be aware. So if there was a survey that they were responding to that explained, you know, that a lot of pipes in homes before a certain date are lead, and, you know, is your house, you know, have a lead service line or whatever. I mean, I don't know how to do the question, but it's then informing them. And then, are you aware that there's a funding program, you know, for funding assistance to do that? So you're getting information from the community, but you're also informing the community. So it's helpful in two ways.
I'd say that's a valid thing to consider. I mean, if there's information that in each of our departments that is crucial that they want to put out into the community, that should also go with that list of questions. If there's things that they come up with that is key information, that, like you said, the lead service, for example, if that's something that Public Works is key information they want to make sure the public knows about, can we find a way to include that information in the survey? So
Well,
I think that's a good idea.
If you hire a professional survey outfit, they're going to provide you with executive overview and a very detailed report that you can pick and choose from. It usually comes in, you know, there's spreadsheet information, you know, graphs that you can manipulate, and of course PDFs that you can take text from.
Yeah.
And it gives you an excellent opportunity to get that information out.
Yeah, they slice it in all different
Yeah.
ways and.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's impressive.
However you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we also need to consider too, any survey that we put out, we want to make sure it's bilingual at least. And because it would have to be translated, we'd have to make sure that if we're going to, I'm assuming we're going to do English and Spanish, the Spanish translation for the questions would have to be formulated in a way that they translate properly, but also convey the right information without it being a leading or awkward question. So, I'm sure the professional services can do it. But I think we're on the right track. I think that if we can get an idea of what we want first, before we even approach anybody, then we know what we need to get out of it.
Okay.
So staff will start
Yeah.
doing some preliminary work.
Yeah,
I'm
in
curious to know
terms
what
of
staff
just what
needs
are
to know.
what are the questions, that
Yeah.
people, that staff have that?
I'll give you one as an example. I had a constituent who's a little premature, but they would like council to consider when the current garbage contract comes up for renewal. It does have a renewal for 5 years. They would like us to put out another RFP because this particular constituent, who is a senior citizen, does not feel like she should be subsidizing everybody else with the same value of service as other constituents when she doesn't use as much of the service.
Well, okay, let's not go into it.
No, I'm
'Cause
just saying.
I know.
This is an example of
I
something.
would
Good
just
example.
tell you though that my mom, who's 87, definitely gets full value from her.
But it
Well-
is a good.
So it's not, it's not sort of universal to a certain age group.
This person would be
that-
more interested in à la carte services than a blanket service for all the things that we do get. For
Yeah.
instance, was mentioned, they will never use the white goods, pickup, so why should that be included in her bill when she never will use that service? And of course, having gone through that whole process and explained to her a little bit about, there were no other bidders, and we were kind of left with trying to negotiate a contract with a single bidder. Still, she thinks we should speak to other contractors to get them to come here, and I explained we actually did do that, but no other contractor wanted to bid for our business. That may change when this contract comes
Right.
close to being finished, but this would be a good example to get input.
It would.
That's actually an excellent
It's
example.
an
And
example
see
to
that
get that
if
kind of
we-
input.
Yeah, because then you
Yeah.
can customize your RFQ
Yeah.
to cover those things that are most important
For the community.
for the users.
And so if we have it in the budget, for instance, to do 2-3 surveys of a certain, capacity each year, then, we can literally, sort of schedule it out
Right.
and say, okay.
Once you have
well,
that structure kind
yeah.
of created, you just
Yeah.
plug in the info you want,
Right.
right?
Exactly. Well, and that then you've got, but like with from a timing standpoint, it's like, okay, when's the garbage contract up? We'd better, do a survey at this point, to inform the RFP process
Well,
for that.
I recommended to the constituent to contact council or committee actually about May of next year, because if we actually did put out an RFP, that would give plenty of time, a year and a half essentially, to create the RFP, put out the RFP, get response where people might actually have enough time to consider it. And because if we did change vendors, they would have to get all new cans. And if you recall, when we did this was during the middle of COVID. You couldn't get cans. I mean, there were a lot of things that played into this, which may have also been contributing factors of why no one else bid. But, I think next year, next summer would be a good time to start thinking about
Yeah.
this. And that would be a good time to put out a survey like that to get that input
Yeah.
from the community so you guys can make decisions.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, I'm genuinely curious to know what the department heads have as far as information that they are lacking that they could use. I mean,
What? Yeah, just kind of a method to get, information for because I think that, when we do these strategic vision things in the future, they need to be kind of a regular item on the agenda just to touch base. And so, I mean, that way, you're never forgetting. There may be nothing new, so you just, okay, nothing new. Like, like every city council meeting where,
Yeah.
report submitted, Mayor,
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Right. And that could be an agenda item too, right? I mean, because we have nothing new on that. And, which is fine, but at least you're touching base, and so, but that's how someone would get their survey considered
Yeah.
if they submit it to the committee to be put on the agenda under that item.
Gotcha.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, to be continued.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we're working on the Spanish translation supports, from what Lou said.
Yep.
How about reviewing the staffing matrix and succession planning model? Is that, what would be a timeline for you wanting to do that?
Is this just a dedicated meeting that we need to have that, that where Lou goes through staffing or?
Yeah, I think normally we have done that at budget time. And so when we created the budget for each department, they would give you the budget and they would make their requests if they wanted to add someone person at that time. But I think it makes sense to have a separate meeting just to talk about this, where we actually concentrate, department by department.
Okay.
And not only about current levels, but, if we needed to add someone, where would we add them? What criteria would we need to have happen before we need to add someone? To better understand, because, we're growing as a community. So, at some point, we're going to need to add more staffing. We just looked at adding to the wastewater treatment plant because it's a bigger process. So I think having a meeting dedicated to just kind of going each department one by one and look at what our current levels are, what we expect to happen in the next 3, 5, 10 years.
So would that be something to do in, let's say, January, prior to doing the budget?
I would recommend doing it before the budget. I think
Okay.
any time between now and the new year would be
Okay.
sufficient.
I think that this actual bullet point is twofold. Reviewing the staff maintenance and succession planning are like two different things, but I
Yeah.
think the staffing matrix is very important, only because I noticed the last bullet point is exploring a part-time communication person, and then we had also talked briefly about possibly part-time parking enforcement, grant writer. I do have some interesting data on the police department, so all of that would be a good time to discuss all that and give history too, because there's a lot of history as far as new hires, who's gotten what, where we're all at with that.
Yeah.
And so maybe not so much the succession planning, but the reviewing of the staff matrix.
I agree. I definitely think that we should start doing this in advance of the budget meeting and the budget workshop, and I think that we need to dedicate some time to it, because
I'd recommend we do it before the staff starts creating their budgets, just
that's
so
what I'm
that,
getting at, because
September, October would be a
Yeah.
really good time.
It's usually
Because
pretty
usually
slow then.
October, November?
because usually we get all the way to the budget workshop, and then it's right in the budget workshop, we're looking
Right.
at the demand, And because the budget workshop is structured the way it is, that it's one department, then the next department, the next department, it's almost like, okay, draw straws on who gets to go first, and they get their staffing, and then everybody else is like, well, we ran out of money. So I think it's valid that we spend time as early as possible
So can
going
we
through this,
shoot
because,
for doing that in October?
yeah, I would say as early as possible.
Okay.
Because we start releasing the budget requests in November.
November, we'll have the tax levy. I want to try to do that a little early this year because we're probably going to be looking at a public,
A public hearing.
public hearing for that.
Yeah, facts and.
Yeah.
and
depending on where
property
the
tax.
CPI comes in
To
to capture our
all
new
the new
growth.
growth.
And then
Oh.
I'm thinking we're going to have the audit review, but that probably be around September. So yeah, I think September, October. I mean, audit review
Okay.
doesn't take that long, so, we'll pick where we don't have a
Well,
ton
and
on
we
the
probably
agenda.
won't have
but-
any comments now
No, probably
on
not.
the audit.
That doesn't
At
seem.
least a lot fewer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, and we can get it done by then. That gives
Yeah.
us time to review everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, nice.
that sounds great. Oh, I think it's raining.
Free water for my pool.
That's supposed to happen?
I think
I
so.
thought it was supposed to be like late.
I don't follow the forecasts anymore. If it says it's gonna rain, it doesn't. If it says it is raining, it doesn't. If it says it's not gonna rain, it does. So I just stick my head out the window and look, and that's what it is.
So what, putting increased engagement with the Council of Governments, what is our, what's our goal there?
Well, I
Like
think it's exposure.
Lori, Rosa, and I try to
right,
increase engagement by attending.
and I think that helps out.
It is.
You
Well,
get
we
exposure.
brought it
I
back
think
here,
your attendance has been well noticed within
Okay.
the organization.
And bringing it back to where we're hosting,
Yes.
which
and
we
bringing
didn't
it
do
here,
for a
yes,
long
has
time.
been very helpful, but it'd be nice if some of the aldermen
Oh, yeah,
attend occasionally, so just
Yeah.
putting it out there. You
Alderman.
don't have to go all the time.
yes,
but
men, yes, because the ladies are,
we're
we're representing Harvard, we're, yeah.
Our friend in Huntley, trustee in Huntley. you
Oh,
guys are just-
Rhonda.
Yeah, Rhonda's
Yeah.
looking at the big clay.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
That
She
could be
like
dangerous,
sees
man.
us. She's like, "Ooh, you're here again."
That's funny.
When are we looking at hosting McCog?
Typically around September.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
I
know it
don't
was
know
like
if we got on
fallish.
the list. I'll have to check.
did.
We did.
You did?
okay.
Okay.
So
Nice.
we always try to do in the fall,
Yeah.
which is always a good time for the Starline building because the ivy starts to change colors.
Oh, yeah, it's very
It
beautiful.
just,
Yeah.
Adds to the ambiance.
And do we have people on different McCog committees?
we have no one on any McCog committees.
Okay. Except Lou.
Yeah, Lou's
Which
on.
one?
Finance.
Oh, finance,
Yeah,
okay.
because you got recognized at,
Got my $10.
yeah, you got recognized.
So, but that goes back to, we also, just a little note, it's a little premature, should be in new business, but we have the Council of Mayors, or the Mayor's Caucus coming. And that is, I believe, was it 5th, 12th, 19th?
This month?
Yeah.
Oh,
But it goes back to anytime they ask for a volunteer or a host city, and I'm within earshot, I make sure to throw our name out there. We almost had McCog coming here twice.
Oh.
But they thought I was being a little too greedy, so.
McCog or?
McCog.
Or council government, I mean,
McCog,
not the mayor's caucus.
not the Mayor's Caucus.
Mayor's caucus has been here once,
okay.
There's quite a few people here, too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's pretty well attended because at the mayor's caucus, that's where they earmark funding for road improvement. So in the city of Harvard, Marengo Road is where we're getting from the mayor's caucus.
Yeah.
It's federal funding that's routed through the state, and then the mayor's caucus decides kind of where it goes. So, and they had changed the way they had done it in the past because it used to be that the bigger cities got all of the funding because they had more population and more bigger projects. And the little guys like us were kind of not getting any funding. And so they changed the rules to prevent like the same municipality getting it all the time kind of thing, which really opened up and allowed us to get some funding and is really helping us out with the future of Marengo Road and has been paying for the engineering of that. So.
That's great.
So right now for the mayor's meeting, if the mayor can't go, then I go. If I can't go, then Rob's been going. So we can make sure that we're always represented.
Oh, that's excellent. Now, are there other, for the Council of Governments, are there other committees that,
Oh, there's always committees.
I know, but that where there are people on staff or council that would be?
No,
Okay,
no, but that's heavily encouraged in our department head meetings.
okay,
We are also, another committee that we're part of is the McHenry County Municipal Partnering Initiative.
Yep.
So we attend that
Oh,
one,
great.
for joint bids and other
Yeah.
opportunities.
oh, great.
And then, as you already know, IPW man, we're involved in that. And then reaching out now with LGMC. So we're definitely getting out there, GFOA, or Illinois GFOA.
What's Illinois GFOA?
Government Finance Officers Association.
Oh, okay,
Through some encouraging. Deb is participating more in those activities.
yeah, I can't get my staff to do stuff like that either.
And then like the emergency, county emergency management
Yep.
planning. Either myself or chief goes to that. So yeah, man, there's a lot of them now. So Harvard
Economic development.
Economic Development, chairman for the enterprise zone.
Yeah.
Which, when my term is up, I'm kind of pushing Donovan now to take over. So yeah, we went from being just maybe a handful of activities as far as on the staff side to being across nearly everything we can find.
It becomes noticed very quickly because Harvard quickly where's Harvard?
Yeah.
Or you're all the way out in Harvard. Now
Yeah.
it's like,
Well, that's where the cow is.
Yeah, the cow is.
Yeah.
Now it's like actually, oh, you're Harvard. It's like when I first moved up here and Harvard was really not involved in much. It was kind of like when people referred to Harvard, it's like they act like we were all the way out in Minnesota. It was like, we're 15 minutes from
Well, and
Woodstock.
just seeing that they actually did a tour at the glove factory.
Yeah, the McHenry County City Administration
Yeah,
had their meeting and had a meeting there, and then we've got Illinois managers, ILCMA, Metro administrators. Yeah, we've got a laundry list that we're participating in.
great. Cool. Okay, partnerships with neighboring communities, so we're involved in that,
And then the McHenry, the
Initiative, yeah.
purchase,
yeah,
MCPI, MCMPI.
yeah,
Trying to participate more in that to make sure we get the best deal we can.
yeah, that's wonderful. And then improve communication with residents, so.
And it has worked through all this. One of the things that we've noticed is a pickup in emails from other agencies saying, hey, we saw you weren't at this meeting, just so you know this is going on.
Oh.
Where before it'd be like, they weren't there. They
Yeah, they're never there.
Right.
Right.
Is Harvard still a place?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's great.
So improving communication to the residents, are we considering that more of like a social media direction that we're going with that, or is that,
Yes.
because to me, that's what that means. So I have seen a lot more outreach from the Parks Department.
We also do expect at some point, when we have enough programming, to have a kind of a quarterly catalog.
Mhm.
But that would be some kind of print material. But along with that, we can put in other department stuff that really gives a better communication, more than the newsletter than we put in water bills. And the newsletter and the water bills was a great tool to try and communicate with people until we, there's a big piece that's missing, and that is those water bills don't go to renters.
Yep.
And so there's a whole swath of our community that never actually sees them unless they look at it online. So
And
having
monthly.
a catalog that also would have kind of a quarterly newsletter with other things, public works related, road related, whatever that's coming up, that we could put out on a quarterly basis would be because there's people, they'll read that if it's,
Well, and if we do
Put
it as
out,
a carrier route mailing,
right.
it's really inexpensive to send.
Like, I mean, can we even, is there a way that we can even have like local businesses sponsor it?
Yes.
Yes.
Because that's what I'm thinking. I mean, my first thought is
We're,
the-
we're already, that's an
Yeah,
expectation, yes.
that's what most communities do, is there's a whole,
Have
several
communities
pages
help
worth of-
sponsor and help defray the cost.
Yeah.
So,
And then with the new website, what we're hoping to do is add more videos.
Mhm.
So like, meet your city staff, or, the mayor's weekly podcast.
You have a whole Public Works section on the YouTube, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, bullet one and the last bullet are tied together, and,
And maybe even a podcast on how to sign up for Code Red.
so part of this process is to determine what the next step is, and when are we gonna meet with,
So,
what's the name of that company that does our website?
Civic Plus?
Huh?
Civic Plus?
Yes,
Civic Plus?
Yeah, Civic Plus, and start talking about what they can do to help us make these changes.
I think that's probably something that, because you've done quite a bit of work on that already, as far as researching and,
Well, I started, but.
yeah. But we'll need a price on that as well for the next budget cycle, so.
Right.
But I think I think we need to get a presentation from them, from their best salespeople. And they'll probably want to do it online if they're worth their salt at all. They'll insist that we do it online.
Yes.
But anyway, get going. Let's start. We don't have to spend any money to talk to them and see what they've got, because I think a lot of what you want to do is now available, integrated into these municipal service websites.
Yeah.
And you can you can practically run a city on one of these website programs now,
Yeah,
including finance,
Yeah.
including code.
So,
Well, yeah, the code is, the cities that have the code where it's codified, I know we've talked about
Yeah.
that. It's fantastic. Just when I'm looking
Yeah, it's
stuff
so
up.
much easier to find stuff.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. Ours
well,
is
there's-
hard to find
So
anything.
it's actually two different, it's Civic Plus is the one that does our website, and then Municode
Unicode.
is the one that
It's
does.
the same company.
They're
Well,
owned,
yeah, that's true, but two different divisions.
Yeah,
Right.
Civic Plus bought.
Yeah.
Unicode.
So that's not a problem as far as Municode, because we are already tight on budget is the only reason why the website was pushed back to the next budget year.
Well, that's fine, but
Yeah.
it's
But,
it's on our
Yeah.
strategic vision. And,
I can get a presentation from
yeah,
them.
let's just start talking to them
Yeah.
and see, because again, we're not saying we're going to complete these things, but we're going to, drill deeper into them and find
Right.
out where they stand in a timeline, right? Yeah.
Right.
We don't have to do it all at once either. Once we have an idea of what we want to do, we can do it as a periodic rollout. Because we also want to include our GIS mapping and everything else all connected in there.
Well, I
So-
think you'll,
There's a lot we want to pack in there, so we want to
you
make
want to
sure
make sure
that.
that they can integrate with GIS mapping and all that sort of
Right.
thing, which I'm sure they will be able to, but.
Yeah.
But
But
the
like-
thing of it,
yeah.
is that you're going to be surprised. These are a lot more reasonable than they used to be. There's so much competition in this area now, And I think that, it's not gonna be that, the power of these things is phenomenal, and I think that, the price isn't gonna scare you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of looking at that for next budget year and
Okay.
putting that in the budget, and let's,
Yeah, at least we'll
Let's
know
do it.
how much it is, when we
Yeah.
can do it, and.
right.
Yeah, you have me sold, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
Gonna debut that new logo out there.
Yeah.
well, that's the most important thing, that Lou.
It is, yes, it is.
Well, it goes a long way, especially not just information, but they have the capabilities now that they didn't have in the past where you can change the language. So it's actually converted automatically to, say, Spanish or Swahili. And then the other is to make it ADA compliant, which, I'm trying to put together our 10-year plan to make us ADA compliant.
Great.
Yeah, there we go.
So
Yeah, but can you switch it back?
No.
Well, and I think that, all of this is fantastic, and I think that, again, I go back to, when I first started on city council, one of the very first discussions that we had was Mike brought up GIS mapping, and it's something very important, we need to focus on it. And it got, it got kind of sprinkled into conversations throughout the first few years, and now that I'm doing what I do, and I use GIS mapping myself for reviewing code in municipalities on a semi-regular basis, and seeing how pitiful some of that code is structured and written, and how in some places where they have the GIS and other places that they don't, it is a completely life-changing, it is a community-altering tool to have that up, because any business or any industry that wants to even look at your community, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to Google that place, or they're going to search for communities that fall within a certain range, and your GIS data is going to come up, and they're going to look, and if you don't have it, they move on. And we're already seeing a lot of attention and development, so I think that while we want to look good, we want to sound good, we want to reach out to our constituents, my main concern is let's get that area up and running as robustly as we can, and a lot of the rest of it will fall into place.
So I'll get a hold of Civic Plus and ask them to prepare a presentation to bring to the committee.
Great. Thank you. Okay, anything else on the strategic vision tonight?
We've covered it pretty well
No.
for the first time.
Yeah.
I think we'll have less to talk about as it goes on, but.
But no, that's good. Any new business?
Yes,
So
Okay.
just a little bit.
I asked Deb to put together this memo because it actually crosses over two different committees.
Okay, tracking.
Yeah. It does involve the infrastructure committee, but it is a finance issue. We weren't prepared to put it on the agenda tonight, but this is kind of a preview for a later or an August discussion. So Deb, hit it.
So yeah, this is basically informational tonight. Mayor, do you have one?
I do not. I do not.
I've already seen it.
And
I got it.
I've already
Okay.
seen it.
He gave me his.
the federal mandate that's requiring us to eventually replace all our lead lines. We've already taken the first steps to do that. If you recall, back in February, we passed, or the council gave us permission to go forward with Christopher Burke in initiating the lead line inventory, which we were eligible for a grant. We did get that grant. We haven't received the money back yet because it is a reimbursable. But we've started working with CBEL. They have done a little bit of work and billed us for some of that, and that is coming out of the TAP-on fund, which is one of the projects we discussed earlier. In the meantime, once those lead lines are all identified, the next step would be to apply for an IEPA loan. This loan, we may be eligible to get loan forgiveness up to 50%, not guaranteed, would be based on our median income, but also on the fact that we don't have any funds to fund another loan because we just took out a $22 million loan from the IEPA
Yeah.
that we're going to take the next 30 years to pay back. But interestingly, in talking with CBEL, that could actually be in our favor as a hardship. We already have a loan. We've just done this expansion. The loan is new. We have committed our increases to our water billing and infrastructure fees to cover this. So that would be another thing possibly in our favor to not only allow us to get loan forgiveness, but to possibly extend the life of our loan as well, where we could go out 40 years or whatever they determined. The problem we have is that there are deadlines. So the first deadline for submitting the loan application is March 31st of 2025. That loan application process is lengthy. CBEL will take care of it for us, and they've given us a quote. So this is an additional cost to us for them to take care of the loan processing. However, part of that loan application is we have to be able to prove up how we're going to pay them back. And I remember we had to do this with wastewater, where we had to show our infrastructure fee initiative and our increases over time and how we were going to pay back this loan. This is going to be no different. We're going to have to figure out a funding source, and we're going to have to prove to them how we're going to pay this back. Can we do that by March of 2025? I don't think so. Lou and I have to look at this a little bit closer, actually a lot closer. But in the meantime, then our next option would be the following March. So one of the things that was stressed to us is there's a lot of federal funds out there, but there's also a lot of people getting in line for them. So it was suggested that we move forward at this time with the IEPA loan application process. In the meantime, there's a lot of steps that the engineer has to take in order to get that going. One of them being environmental evaluations, and that's probably the most lengthy. That's going to take the most amount of time between now and the beginning of the calendar year next year. And so I think environmental clearances is what they call, and that's going to be most of their work at this time. So Lou and I discussed this in depth, and we both feel that it's probably prudent that we start the process now, knowing we're not going to be committed to it in March if we can't follow through with the funding. We at least have started the steps and gotten a lot of the work out of the way. It's going to come at a price tag of $23,020. That's attached to the memo that that Lou had me do for you. And then the last page, I think I also included how much we've already spent for the lead line inventory. The next steps for that portion is for Rob to complete the mailing, get it back to CBEL. They'll do the translations and everything and tweak it to their standards, however they do it. And then we need to get that mailing out because we can't technically know how much we're going to need to borrow for the loan until we know how many actual lead lines we have. And so we're at that point right now where we're still researching that. But this would be the next step. So we're just asking for now to give this out to you for information so that you have time to look at it, ask any questions, figure anything out that you need to figure out prior to the next next committee meeting in August, at which time we'll be asking for approval on moving forward with this. And this price won't change. It's good for another month, so we're okay on that, $23,000.
Do we have any kind of guess on how many lead lines we might have? I mean, even if we highballed it.
So I'm just gonna say, there's 2,800 water users, right? We know a bunch of newer homes are not gonna have lead lines, but a vast majority of the homes were built before lead lines were kind of done away with. I'd use a number of 1,500 just to kind of get an idea. That's $30 million at $20K a piece.
Just so that way, we know.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know it's going to be expensive.
And I hope that that's not the case. We're talking about, the last time you could use lead lines was 1986, 1988, before they were outlawed. Even prior to that, you were using galvanized for quite a long time. So you're talking early houses, but this also means that a lot of our historical district, they probably have lead lines. And also, one of the things that's the scariest is we have state right-of-way bisecting the town in, two different directions. So, anything that we have to do that requires us to do any maintenance underneath the state right-of-way is very concerning. And most of the stuff on state right-of-way is also a historical house or an older house.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
I was hoping for like maybe 700, but it's really hard to tell because there's some stuff in the inventory that shows suspected lead, and we're down there either doing a inspection for water service replacement or anything like that, and we look at our site and like, well, that's copper. I wonder when that happened.
And the price tag, as the mayor indicated, is they estimate the cost to replace a single lead line is $10,000 to $20,000 a piece. So we're estimating on the high side.
No, we need to estimate the highest because that's,
So $30 million loan, if
On
half
top of a
if half is forgiven, it's 15 million. You're looking at how much to service that debt? 600K a year?
Well, and if we are,
Yeah, it depends on the interest rate.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's just like ballpark numbers here. 600K a year to service.
And they'll only
That kind
do
of debt.
4 million a year,
well,
right?
so the other thing to add in is depending on our hardship, whatever's left over, is that we can extend out the payments up to 40 years.
Right.
Correct?
So that
Yeah,
can lower
so,
our payment.
so
Yes.
if we qualify for hardships, and like Deb said, that there's a good chance that we can,
Yeah.
we already low, medium income, we're batting 1,000 on a lot of things.
Yes.
So we may be able to get the term extended to 40 years, which would help a lot.
And it's at 0%, by the way.
So I'm just curious, so this lead service line inventory and replacement plan that we've already paid for.
Mhm.
So in terms of, it looks like 56 hours of data collection. So what data were they collecting?
So right now, what they've done is they've went through historical data. They've imported all that into the GIS system. So right now, using city login, we can see what's out there, and it's a lot of ugly unknown lead. But, there's certain, I've asked the building department, they could sort of tell me what was built after 1990, so we can take some more of those and move them to assumed not lead, or,
Okay.
must be copper, because at the standards of the time, that's what it is. So, it would leave us with less than, but all this time to build this app, to build this data, to do the flows, to get everything in there, we're at the point where, I just talked about it with John Duddles today, when I was preparing a document for infrastructure. He's like, we're just about there, we need to go over the letters, and then we can start sending the letters out, and then getting people to start interacting. And of course, with that will be videos on Facebook and trying to explain to people, here's the materials, this is what it looks like, this is, we need this information because, I don't know if a gift card's required, it seemed to help, but, you could get a free service line. And we either have to replace it to either the first valve within your residence, because we're using federal funds, or 18 inches inside your residence. But you're talking, holes in foundation, holes in your yard, sidewalk repair, curb repair, directional boring, and all that could be free if you just let us know what's in there.
This is a very confusing topic, and there's a lot out there to read if anybody's interested. One of the things that I'm having a hard time grasping is how they're going to enforce this replacement to begin by 2027 for communities that just can't afford it. And so that kind of leads me to believe that we might see some extensions in the near future, although some people I've talked to have said, no, the federal mandate is going to stand. I do know that there's several communities that the state of Illinois had not even pursued this. So what are the fines going to be? What are the repercussions going to be? There's a lot of unanswered questions. So it may be down the road that we buy some time based on, an extension availability. I don't know, but at this time, that's not being solidified, so.
In light of recent Supreme Court decision, this may fall under overreach.
Oh, yeah, depending on who wins in November, this could just all go away.
Well,
Meantime, though, we have to
Yeah, I
assume
know.
that this is the
I agree.
federal law.
Well, the other thing too is we also have to keep in mind that this is that the federal funding for this has already been allocated. It's already been
Right.
set aside and it's already being used.
Right.
So we have to bear in mind that for the federal funding being already allocated, it's very unlikely that someone's going to take it away, because it's a lot harder to take something away once it's already been given. But the other side of it is
okay.
they
You know, the thing of it is, though, is that if the Supreme Court says they can't enforce it,
Yeah.
there's going to be a whole bunch of towns and so on sue the federal government, and in some cases, state governments, to not enforce it.
Right.
Well,
And,
yeah, the state of Illinois hasn't even pursued anything
and,
as far
and
as
I'm not
funding that.
saying that's going to happen, but I'm just saying that, especially when you get into these jams where the time frame looks really difficult.
Yeah.
That's fodder for.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and that's always a possibility, but unfortunately, in the meantime,
Yeah, I know we have to put, yeah, I know, but I'm just saying that
At least to get the environmental work that they need to do done, you know, that's a big part of the application process. You know, and I'm guessing that, and it was June, not March, for the application deadline, that if we were to apply in June, we're not going to hear anything for quite a bit of time, because they have to vet through all of the applications and determine who's going to get what and how much and who qualifies for the loan forgiveness and at what percentage. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done, and we know that that takes a long time. So, you know, 2027 is not that far away. And I hesitate to say that this is going to happen by then, but we still have to go with it, and I recommend that we at least move forward.
No, I agree. I think it's very good. If you look back through history and you look at the amount of money that's come in for projects like this from the federal government, it's few and far between. It takes years and years for the federal government, I mean, decades in some cases, for the federal government to push through large amounts of funding like this. And unless it's a large amount of funding that's going through, municipalities like ours never see a chunk of it. Because the amount, it's sadly a trickle-down effect that goes to the major cities and then works, and the largest counties and then works their way out. So if we have the opportunity to grab some of these funds, we need to make every effort possible to try to get ahead of it and be as far up in the line as possible to claim it, because even if it comes down to enforcement, if the money's there and we can get a hold of it, it's way better to get a hold of it now than be waiting, and then 10 years from now, we're on the hook for all of it, and there's enforcement behind it as well.
Well, and it's the right thing for our residents.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So this is tonight just informational. Please take some time and look it over, and if you have any questions at all, you know, it was really important when we had our discussion today for Lou to make sure that, this is a very technical thing, so there might be a lot of questions, and we don't even fully understand it. There's a lot of moving parts, so we would have time to research that between now and the next meeting. If you chose to approve it and then council approved it, we could move forward. And CBEL knows it's going to be, and this is one of those rare things where it kind of falls between two committees, because it's also infrastructure, which is
Right.
why it's on their agenda as well. But as
Yeah.
far as the funding, that approval needs to go through this committee.
Gotcha.
no, I appreciate you pushing to get this to us as early as possible. I mean, it was something that we addressed, is trying to get ahead of this information so we have time to process it, so it's a good example. So I appreciate that, Lou and Deb, for doing that.
The other thing is just kind of, real quick, I had already seen Charlie, so I gave him an article at the committee of the whole meeting. We were briefly discussing before the meeting started the Dixon debacle, and couple questions were asked, so I thought I would print this out for you, because it's very interesting reading, actually. Do you want a copy? And yes, oh, no, this is actually from the Journal of Forensic Sciences. It's, I did a paper on this when I was getting my master's, so this is one of the articles that I'd found at that time. I thought I gave you one earlier. Here, you can have mine. But anyway, it's interesting reading. But what's even more interesting about it is, and Charlie actually brought this up earlier, she wasn't a mastermind. She just wasn't monitored. And that's the big takeaway from this, I think, if you take the time to read it, is that she got away with things because she was trusted and nobody asked questions. And I know that this council doesn't have that problem by any means, But, you know, when you're thinking about finances, and it's not a matter of who you know, how long they've been there, how much you trust them. You trust, but you always verify. And this is a perfect example of how that wasn't done and how this community suffered tremendously because of it. Not only that they did not have their infrastructure, you know, repaired for years, and they went without essential services, but people lost their jobs. And it all could have been avoided. And you'll look in here, you'll see that one of her biggest fraudulent tactics was dumping invoices, making checks out to herself and putting them into her account.
Wow.
So it's very interesting. So if you have time to read it, I think it'll open your eyes to how easily it can be done. Well, not so much anymore, but could have been done. And then I think we should maybe look at some more internal controls as far as the council goes. One thing I would like to see that doesn't happen, and Charlie and I talked about this or emailed back and forth about this earlier, is there's not a lot of questions on the payables each month. The payables get approved,
Right.
but I don't know how well they get scrutinized. As well as we get further into the budget and it starts to look, you know, like you have the budget report in front of you too. But it only goes through June, so obviously the numbers look good because we're only in June. But as the things start to build up and anything that looks out of whack, I think it's really important that, you know, questions be asked. I know Alderman Haderlein has access to the accounts, so she can look at the banking accounts at any time she wants, which is perfect. Somebody should be able to do that.
Wait, how do I do that?
Did your online access? You were given like an online login and password when you took over for Carl? Possibly. Dave would have handled that
Why
with
don't you walk her through that?
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll take care of that.
Yeah.
We'll take care
I
of
mean,
that.
Dave used to send me everything.
Okay,
I mean, he
stop
used to
in.
send- Okay, I
We'll
will
take
stop
care of
in.
that.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
So anyway, it's good reading, but it also is very eye-opening and important.
400.
And this is why, too, one of the other takeaways is we're always talking about internal controls, we're always talking about checks and balances, and the auditors want to see this, and the auditors want to see that. And the auditors did crack down after this happened, because I'd had 2 audit cycles before this happened, and like, by that year, it was like they wanted, their standards completely changed. So every time we talk about, well, we have to do it this way because it's internal controls, and we have to do it this way because it's cleaner, and it's, all of those are valid reasons for avoiding not only fraud, but the misperception of fraud, right? And the transparency and those kind of things, so.
Yeah. Good.
Anyway, I just wanted to give you that for reading, and then the budget as well, the
So,
hard copy.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The reason I could see that she wasn't the genius that everybody said she was is that how she got caught was she went on vacation. And so the, what was it, the clerk?
Clerk,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Part-time clerk.
The clerk went in just to take her place so that the bills got paid. She saw this account that she couldn't figure out, so she asked the bank for a statement, and that was it. The gig was up. That's all it took. Nobody looked at that.
One of the
Yeah,
other
no
things she
checks and
used to do
balances. Yeah.
is she used to go on vacation, and she would ask the mayor if he was okay with her having the mail forwarded to her house till she got back, and she would just take care of it when she got back. Sure, no problem. I don't know a mayor who would do that here, nor an administrator, but those are things that, she's been there since she was 18 years old, right?
Yeah.
And what happened with when the clerk took over is she was going away for too long. And they said, no, that's too long to have the mail forwarded, so we need to have someone step in and take over while you're gone. So Greed took over basically, and
I'm just amazed that she was able to start one of the most prestigious horse breeding businesses in the world and have 400 horses and, all this stuff and nobody noticed.
Well,
So
Did
the
you get
assumption was, and there's a
Family
really
money.
neat documentary called All the Queen's Horses, currently on Prime, if you get that. Not that that's an advertisement. But, so the assumption that everybody was making was that she was able to afford all this because she was going and there were show horses. So she was obviously winning money. And that's how, using that winnings to go and buy. What was actually happening is she was using the money that she was stealing to prop up the horse show.
Well, she grew up on a horse farm too, so
Yeah.
her being
Family
around
money,
horses-
right?
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
family thing.
Well, and that's the other thing too. So she pled guilty. She was sentenced to 20 years in the federal penitentiary. She served 8. And the remainder of her sentence is being served on her brother's 80-acre farm in Dixon, house arrest. So, that'll teach her, right?
Darn.
And she has to pay back the money that her sale of her assets didn't cover, which they'll probably never see either, so.
So, one of the things that now that everyone's getting used to each other here as far as staff, one of the things I used to do in a previous community is that right now we're, anything that was over 5%, if you were 5% over your budget in a line item, as compared to where you are in the budget year. So, for example, we are 16% of the budget year done.
Yep.
Anything over 21% would require an explanation.
Oh.
As long as it was over, my rule was over $2,000. So if it was a line item that's normally $2,000 or under, and you're at 21% or over that, you're okay. And explanations are right, but it's not required. But if it's, say, a $30,000 line item, and you're at 21%, okay, what happened? So that we have notes throughout the year.
Right.
And it also kind of forces the department heads to explain it away and be more concentrated on their budget, rather than I have money to spend.
Yeah, and if it's legit, it's going to be explainable and there's going to be backup.
So that's something that in this next department head meeting, I'm rolling out beginning August 1st. So we're instituting some internal controls as well.
Right.
Or additional internal controls, sorry.
I just got to the Exhibit 3 in this article. I'm just like,
It's flabbergasting, it really is. Did you get a copy?
yeah, sorry.
Yeah. That's all I have. Oh, no, I do have one more thing. For the next agenda, we'll need to talk about ARPA funds, and we'll make available the capital improvement update, because we need to start discussing how we're gonna allocate some of those. Maybe August or September.
Can ARPA funds pay for the vac trip?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't
so
think it
either.
can pay
I
for
don't- yeah,
vehicles.
I think because it's equipment.
Because it's
I don't think-
infrastructure, right?
Yeah,
I
it's
think
not
I
considered,
think- yeah, I think it
it's
has-
considered equipment, so no. They have lightened up on some of their parameters, but that's not one of them.
Just looking for other ways.
Yeah,
So Deb, are you here Thursday afternoon?
yes.
Okay. Good. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. With motion to adjourn?
So move.